This AskReddit user asks, what's the cringiest thing you've seen a bride and groom do for their wedding? This was more so the bride's family. One of my first classmates to get married. We were approximately 19. Had a small reception. Mostly family and friends from high school. Nothing wrong with that. They decided to auction off the garter belt. And whoever won took it off the bride. Most of us were poor college students. So the only people bidding were her dad and uncles. It was super uncomfortable. Gross. My uncle not only brought up his daughter's ex-boyfriend in his speech but talked about their toxic relationship for a solid 5 minutes. I highly recommend preparing a speech before talking in front of a room full of people. You know those slightly off-looking Mickey and Minnie Mouses you see in NYC? Yeah. They showed up for the first dance because the bride loved Disney. The entire room was forced to watch bride and groom dance alongside a deformed Mickey and Minnie. And halfway through they switched so the bride was dancing with Mickey and the groom with Minnie. I've never seen such a strange combination of stifled laughter and horrified stares. Probably my cousin's wedding. The food was really bad. And I mean really bad. Things that were supposed to be warm, hot were ice cold and completely undercooked. There was music but nobody was allowed to dance because we don't want people to dance on our wedding. There was also no alcohol. Not a single drop. But the worst thing was the seating arrangement. They didn't plan on families, friends sitting together. I don't know what they were thinking. I was sitting on a table with complete strangers. They even separated our grandparents from each other. After an hour my grandmother stood up, walked over to my grandfather and both declared that they are leaving now to the restaurant down the road having something good to eat and a beer. I joined them as well as my parents. It didn't took long that people noticed that our seats were empty. Really easy to figure out since nobody was allowed to dance or walk around in general. We got a call from one of my uncles where we're at. After we explained why we left he said, "You are right. This is bullshit," and we ended up with 20 guests from the wedding in that small restaurant having a fun evening. I still don't know why they even bothered celebrating their wedding. They also never invited us again. That's actually a good thing because now I don't need to find an excuse why I can't join their future parties. I actually read in a wedding advice book that you should seat people with strangers so they get to know new people and the two families get to know each other. I think it's a bad idea. Requiring every attendee to bring a date because she didn't want sad, lonely people on her day. Not my friends luckily, but pretended to be a friend's date because she really wanted to see her cousin get married. Not wedding but engagement ceremony. They reenacted a scene from an old romantic film. About two lovers in 1800s. In front of like 300 people. Sorry. Engagement ceremony? What's that? A way to spend money you don't realize you need and to invite others to spend money on gifts to replenish your out-of-pocket costs for hosting the event in the first place. Not the bride and groom but my husband's cousin has a signature wedding move. About halfway through the reception he takes over the band DJ mic and sings this rockin' 60s pop song. I forget which one but you'd know it. He really plays it up. Belts it out. It's his moment in the spotlight and everyone loves it. Except in my husband's family there's like 60 cousins, so I've seen this move in dozens of weddings over the years. The first time it felt spontaneous and fun. But now I cringe as he heads up for the mic yet again. Friend of friends. Young. Uber Christian small town naive girl. Meets married. Much older man with 2 kids. Falls in love. He does eventually leave his wife. Doesn't want any custody. Wedding was her hometown church. His vows were over the top about how he has never felt love before. She is the only woman he ever wanted to marry. He's been so lonely his whole life. Etc. He's literally sobbing through it all. Her turn to say her vows and she's standing there saying nothing for at least 3 beats. Then she is handed a microphone and the piano starts playing. She's made up her own song, which are her vows. After the ceremony, we adjourn to the church basement for the alcohol-free reception. I'm somehow roped into serving the groom's cake. It's 2 NASCAR car cakes made with an edible photo draped over the cake shapes and impossible to cut through without mangling the cake, so I have to peel it off. My friend is cutting the bride's cake and it's a full inch or more of fondant on top of plain cake. No frosting. The buffet was potluck from her family. Food you'd expect at a kid's party. Pink punch was the only thing to drink. No dancing because of her religion. Then they left for their honeymoon at the town's only hotel, which was like a Motel 6-level dump in a 2-horse-drawn carriage. I wasn't prepared for how terrible this wedding sounded. I almost wish that I was there. Ah yes, the woman who starts a relationship with a married man, but won't dance at her wedding because she's so religious. Bride takes 3 hours to appear. After the ceremony, she and her spouse go up in an air balloon. The marriage did not last a year. Well, aside from the 2 hours late part. That could be cool. So one of the 3 hours counts as the normal lateness quota. Well, the groom, my uncle, didn't do it. But my dad wrote, "Help me," on the bottom of his shoes in big blocky letters, so when he went up and kneeled at one point, the immediate crowd had a good laugh. Edit. My dad wrote the letters on my uncle's shoes. Not his own. The crazy BH bride entrance no one knew about. Edit. NSFW. Kinda thought the words "crazy BH" in the link would clarify that. But in case you need more warning, here it is. In love with the shock and confusion on that dad's face in the front. When he hugged his kid and was like, "Please God, don't marry someone like this when you get old." Oh my lord, the bandanas on the groomsmen. Dated a girl in my 20s and went to her friend's wedding in upstate New York. In the middle of the service, the minister's cell phone rang. He answered. It was God. God wanted to talk to the groom. Conversation lasted a couple minutes. Then the ceremony continued. Did everyone laugh, or was it meant to be serious? I mean, if it wasn't a joke and was an actual call from God, I think it would have been pretty big news. I G'd a wedding for a couple that were constantly throwing up red flags as to why I shouldn't DJ their wedding. I.e., asking for a discount in exchange for a positive review. I don't want your FG fake review. One of these red flags was when they wanted me to live mix their special dance number. I'm fine with mixing live. It is what I do professionally. But these two were not professional dancers. Honestly, at this point I can't even remember what their complaint was. They did their dance. It wasn't entirely smooth. But their family and friends loved it because, get this, their family and friends loved the bride and groom. Immediately after the reception, the groom gave me a tip and they both said I did an amazing job. Cut to the next morning. Likely while the bride and groom were still drunk. The groom emails me with some constructive criticism. A few emails later, he is demanding that I apologize and that he isn't going to pay me the balance of what I was owed. He then ghosts me. A few days later, the wedding coordinator contacts me to say that I have to give them a discount because they are so mad at how their first dance went. These two people, who are not professional dancers, who awkwardly pulled off a terrible first dance, with nobody who was present knowing how the dance was supposed to look, blamed me for feeling awkward. I just told the coordinator that the bride and groom can keep their money. At my cousin's wedding, they did the thing where the groom removes the bride's garter and tosses it to all the single guys. I guess none of the guys wanted to be next to be married. Because once the groom tossed the garter, no one grabbed it. It just landed on the ground a few feet in front of a crowd of motionless guys. The groom tossed the garter 3 times before one guy half-heartedly picked it off the ground. The bride wouldn't look at any of those guys for the rest of the night. It's such an outdated tradition. I've been to a wedding where something similar happened with the bouquet toss and all the ladies backed away when the bouquet was thrown. The DJ ended up making a joke about it though and everyone had a good Slightly awkward. Laugh. I went to a wedding with my ex a few years back. It was one of his fraternity brother's wedding. And apparently the bride's parents were ridiculously conservative. So conservative that they have super edited versions of every song the DJ played, including bleeping out the word shots from Shots by LO. Also, it was a dry wedding, so this rendition of the song was almost too on the nose. Not the groom and bride's fault, but the pastor marrying them. Talked about his marriage and his kids for 20 minutes. He was obviously going for something of showing what marriage will be like. But he full up was talking about how his daughter, Kelsey, learned to walk this way, and his other daughter's first words were this and that he and his wife make love throughout the house because that's what you do when in love, etc. Bride and groom had to stand there holding hands for 20 minutes right in front of him as the other 150 of us had to listen about his sex life and his kids. Oh God. You just reminded me of an acquaintance I knew. Didn't go to the wedding but heard from a mutual friend who was there, where the pastor marrying them told the couple to divorce their friends under the promise that it would make them a stronger couple or some st like that. And they followed that advice. So pretty much after the wedding and reception, they just never again talked to any of the friends they had invited to celebrate their big moment. I thought they would be divorced within a year. But turns out that they're still together. But yeah, apparently married couples aren't allowed to have friends? That is probably the single worst piece of advice I've heard in this thread. Friend's wedding. The bride wanted to sing him a song. So she did a kind of karaoke thing. There's bad singing. And then there's whatever the hell this was. It was so awkward. Also, dude asked a professional photographer friend of ours to photograph the wedding about a year before. Got a super non-committal answer. Never followed up. And was shocked that the photographer didn't show up, after he specifically declined the invitation because he was going to be in another country. Had the entire set of groomsmen rent ridiculously expensive tuxedos. Which, fine. Cool. Happy to be here. He's having his tux custom tailored. Asks for something ridiculous and gaudy. But when quoted the price says he can't swing that and insists they do it for about 1/4 the price. They do their best to meet specifications within the given price range. But it's bad. Really bad. So, the groomsmen look amazing. And he looks like a clown that didn't put on his makeup. Has another friend make a custom batch of mead for the toast. But rents a hall that doesn't allow outside alcohol. So it can't be used for the toast during the reception. It was probably the cringiest thing I've ever seen. Not just the cringiest wedding or even cringiest thing at a wedding. Went to a wedding for my cousin. It was both of their second time getting married and they had only known each other for about 4 months. When they were getting married at the altar, the husband had a 6-pack of Dr. Pepper and the wife had a 6-pack of Mountain Dew. After the reading of the vows, the priest says, "You may now kiss the bride." So they kiss and then immediately hand each other one of their drinks and start to chug it. At the reception line, after the church wedding ceremony, the bride had a large bottle of her favorite perfume and sprayed each guest with it, female and male, whether they wanted it or not, as they entered the banquet hall. Some guests complained that the smell of perfume was so strong that they lost their appetite and couldn't partake of the banquet. Why would she do this? The bride said she loved the fragrance and wanted to share that love with everyone celebrating with her and her new husband. Quote, "Hey hun, just wanted to share this great fragrance with you. To celebrate my husband and I's special day. For a limited time, I'm offering you this unique opportunity to become an early distributor with me. Respond quick while there's still spaces. This great product won't be a secret for long. It's blowing up already. Easy to see why. The ingredients are so ethical and honest. It's practically made of honor." I was forced to sit there and had to watch the bride and groom take pictures and poses that were from Bollywood movies. for 2 hours straight. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.